And with memory problems, I think it's time to let him go to the retirement home and let someone else try it out.
The only thing I can confirm is that Joe Biden is an elderly man. As to his mental state, I have not met the man or had any personal interactions with him where I feel competent to judge his mental state.
I do believe that he is a little too old to be making up rules for the rules that he's making that he won't be able to see out in his lifetime, I guess.
I mean, I think I probably side with a whole lot of folks in this country when I say I wish we had some other alternatives, right? On both sides of the aisle. But look, when I think about the alternative to Joe Biden, that's not a good solution for me.
The special counsel's report does not recommend any charges against President Biden, but the language in the report does raise questions about the president's mental acuity. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
To decades in prison than any other piece of legislation in U.S. history. His vice president, when she was Attorney General of the state of California, put more black men behind bars than any other Attorney General in modern U.S. history. That is the one thing that the Democrats can't run away from. And President Trump is the one that cured it. He came in and said, hey, let's fix this disproportionate sentencing. Let's review it. Let's let these minorities out and give them another chance. And also, let's talk about the folks that never committed crimes in the first place. He doesn't see people as red, white, blue, yellow, purple, pink. He sees them as Americans.
People, including Latinos, don't like what's going on in our country. We have an open border situation. We have inflation. Even though it's controlled, prices have not gone down. So the cost of living is still really high for Latinos. And in a community that is struggling economically, that resonates. That message resonates. You know, when you have high prices in rent, mortgage, to put food on the table, all those issues are affecting the American dream among Hispanics, among Latinos, and they're hurting. These people are coming across the border and taking resources from Latinos in this country. Most of the people that are coming across, 10,000 a day, are coming directly to live in communities, the Hispanic communities. And crime is on the rise. You saw what happened in New York, for example, and Latinos don't like that.
And so there you have it, the former president of the United States celebrating a victory in Nevada and now going on for other challenges ahead of him. But he says what he's really focused on is November and the state of the world today as it relates to America. He claims that America has been viewed as a laughingstock. He wants to change all that. He's concerned about the border, the southern border. He's also concerned about Ukraine and Israel and about Iran and Iraq. The president says there are adversaries that have been rising up against America, and he says that if he wins in November, he will make changes very quickly that will put America first. In Nevada, I'm Kelly Wright. Back to you.
They use my pistol to run them off. It's become a dangerous, dangerous thing to live every night of your life wondering. I sleep with pistols under my pillows, pistols in every room, pistols on my nightstand. It's just crazy. I live 25 miles from the nearest place. 911 doesn't help me a bit.
A budget outlook report for the next 10 years. The report estimates that America's population will increase over the next decade due to immigration. This will also take its toll on wages. The report states that average real wages are expected to be slightly lower by 2034 than they would be otherwise. Many say the report's most shocking projection is that it expects government debt will rise by $20 trillion in the next decade to $54 trillion. Now, this new report comes just as state senators in Virginia advance a health care bill for immigrants. The Cover All Kids Act would provide state-funded health care to all low-income immigrants under the age of 19. Now, a Republican state senator who opposed the bill reportedly said it would cost Virginia taxpayers $100 million just in this decade. And an update on this attack on police officers near Times Square, in which a group of illegal immigrants punched two officers and kicked their heads as they were lying on the ground. 7 individuals allegedly involved in this incident have now been indicted. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who doesn't often address the public, held a press conference on Thursday.
This assault, as it did to many of you, sickened me and outraged me. We all rely on members of the NYPD every day, as I said, to keep us safe and keep this the safest big city in America.
Bragg also commented on speculation that the suspects had been caught in Arizona after fleeing New York. He dismissed those reports, saying they're not true. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
But he let him out of jail.
Mexico surpassing China. Actually, when that particular state is Texas, which shares a 1,200-mile border with Mexico. Well, 1 month ago, Governor Greg Abbott signed into law a new border security bill which gave Texas state law enforcement very broad authority, including the ability to arrest migrants who enter Texas illegally, and it also allowed local judges to order the deportation of these migrants out of the country. And the state-level border security bill, it just added to the steps that the Texas government was already implementing to stop what they refer to as an invasion. They've taken over Shelby Park near Eagle Pass, and they blocked federal agents from having access to the park. They set up large barricades, and also the state of Texas has been setting up razor wire on the border with Mexico in order to stop illegal crossings. And the razor wire in particular has proven to be very effective. For instance, this video right here was taken by one of our reporters at the border, and it shows a migrant from Guatemala who crossed the river, but because of the razor wire, his only option was to either go back to Mexico or to head upstream and try a different spot without barbed wire to cross, which is exactly what he wound up doing. That just goes to show that the barbed wire is effective. Now, all these actions fall under the broad umbrella of something known as Operation Lone Star. This plan costs the state of Texas approximately $2 billion per year, and it involves the Texas National Guard apprehending migrants, arresting criminals, seizing drugs, setting up barricades, and so on and so forth. And here's the thing. You might assume that the Biden administration would be supportive of what Texas is doing, because after all, setting up razor wire on the border will definitely have the effect of stopping illegal crossings, and since it's the Texas government that's doing it, well, the federal government can even save some money because it's not them footing the bill. However, you would be wrong. That's not what they did. Instead, the Biden administration had their federal officers begin to cut the barbed wire themselves in order to get to the migrants and process them into the country. And because of this, Mr. Ken Paxton, who is the Attorney General of Texas, he filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration arguing that the federal agents were cutting this wire in order to help people cross illegally through the river before taking them in for processing. Here's specifically what Ken Paxton said in a statement alongside his actual lawsuit. Quote, "Federal agents have developed and implemented a practice of destroying Texas's concertina wire to encourage, induce, and assist thousands of aliens to illegally cross the Rio Grande and enter Texas. Federal agents, in some cases, attempted to ease aliens' ability to illegally climb up the riverbank into Texas by attaching ropes or cables to the back of pickup trucks. Federal agents regularly cut new openings in the wire fence, sometimes immediately after Texas officers have placed new wire to plug gaps in fencing barriers." Now, the lawsuit itself between the Biden administration and the state
Now asking the Congress receives facts vote. If he is back, votes stay the same. They passed this three factors, but there is a curve, Steve, special election in New York on Tuesdays for Stanford. Then will not be impeachment defecting the votes. Steve?
NTD's congressional correspondent Melina Wisecup with that live. Thank you.
Gates have been run through. We've had 3 electric gates destroyed. Most of my hunting blinds have been vandalized. Windows and doors broken. One set on fire. Several used as bathrooms.
There was 5 of them, 5 men. These men had surrounded my house. They were banging on my back door. They were banging on my front door simultaneously. They were looking through our windows in my daughter's room, in my little boy's room. They were all the way around the house. Luckily, I was able to get home quick enough to stop anything from happening. It's a very scary situation knowing that we're this far out. We shouldn't have any trespassers on our property. We are way out in the middle of nowhere. It took Border Patrol an hour and 7 minutes to get here. We've just been kind of cast to the wolves, and we're just left to deal with this problem because nobody else wants it.
You know, the people in King County and in all counties along the border dealing with this, they aren't enjoying the freedom and the rights that are guaranteed in the Constitution, the right to, property and enjoyment of life. We had a county resident in a vehicle where their worker was out on the ranch. They were driving the ranch vehicle and they come across.
Well, we
were successful in stopping a potential migrant shelter that was going to have 50 or so young male migrants move in with a group of seniors at a senior residence. We were very concerned about this because the seniors deserve to have their residence that's peaceful, dedicated to them, and they were going to take away the community room away from them. And so we researched the property. We found that they received state tax credits. As part of the lease, it had to remain a senior residence only, which means 62 and older. We also found where they were planning to put the migrants would have been a violation of building code as well as fire code, which is not safe for anyone, including the migrants themselves. And we wrote a letter to the pastor, and we were able to successfully stop this plan from moving forward, preserving this community space and the residence itself for our senior citizens who deserve it.
And what else are you hearing from your constituents about the migrant crisis in their communities?
Every issue that we face has to do with the volume. A criminal trespass case is, pretty simple. Were you on the property? Yes or no? Did you have permission to be there? Yes or no? But when you have 5,000 of them, all of a sudden it's complicated.
In April 2021, Brent Smith drafted a state of disaster declaration for Kinney County. This inspired dozens of other Texas counties to follow suit. And by the end of May, Texas Governor Greg Abbott declared a state of disaster and launched Operation Lone Star, a way for small counties to get resources they need to beef up their response.
This is an operation that's going to be similar to what we've done in the past, where we provide a surge of resources to the border.
Under Operation Lone Star, more Texas troopers were sent to border areas to try to stop the human smuggling. Texas troopers stopped this truck, but the occupants bailed out and jumped a nearby ranch fence. Troopers, deputies, and Border Patrol agents caught up with them.
See that man right there? He's claiming to be a Mexican Marine.
You want to see my pictures? You want to see my pictures?
Let me see.
Okay, hold on.
All the scratches coming usually whenever they jump into the bush.
The driver said he spent 4 years in the Mexican military, fighting against the cartels.
So as you can see, we don't face regular people around here.
Yeah, because for the cartels, I fight for the cartels. No, peleaba para que no estuvieran los carteles.
Everything. I mean, we're young kids, old people. We had a retired couple. They're in their 60s, trying to make ends meet, according to them. Now we're getting people out of Ohio, Washington State, Illinois, flying in, picking up a rental car, coming to the border, trying to make quick money. And they're getting caught.
The tempting online world is encroaching on our campus. Is unplugging cables and confiscating phones the solution to protect our children? No.
Driver, get out of the car now! Get out! Step back! Get in! There's everything else checked. You're slow.
Major miles away border is usually legal point for the night. House to us, this is an hour of the border.
If you have not checked, the kid work for
Law officers and outnumbered together and get them to remove Jews.
The driver hit to $1,000 a head. They were going to San Antonio. So you want to pass that on to your guys? Yes, you will. He's taking them to San Antonio. Where they're from? Guada.
The U.S. citizen driver and aliens in this vehicle, from a family member. He's now facing up to 14 years in prison, 2 years for each person. Border Patrol arrived to pick up the illegal immigrants. And the wrecker picked up the vehicle. The deputies took the suspects to the sheriff's office for questioning. For the next 5 hours, the arresting deputy interviewed the 3 detainees and completed the probable cause affidavit. The driver was charged with 2 counts of human smuggling, and the passengers were released without charges. At 5:41 a.m., the deputy was back on the road in another smuggling pursuit.
116. Suspect, what's up? 048 to 116. What's your ETA again?
116 to rear. We have a 7-minute ETA.
10-4.
Did he immediately hit the bush, or did he run the road somewhere?
Say it again?
Did he immediately hit the brush, or did he run the road?
No, he slowed down, went on the road, hit the fence, and then pretty much when they were doing it, got on foot.
We've had some very serious accidents where, you have them piled into this vehicle and you start rolling over, their bodies flying all over the place. There's some been ugly stuff that has happened. But we have seen more railroad-associated incidents than we normally get. We had one a month ago. Person jumping off the train, slipped, and amputated their leg. Those that choose to sleep in between the rails, because the myth is that if you're going to sleep on the railroad tracks, get between the rails because the snakes won't come over the metal. I don't know if that's a proven fact or not. I haven't tried it, but that has occurred is several.
Just get out of the vehicle and get behind me.
Throw the keys out the vehicle window! Throw the keys out! Here, las llaves! Face
away from me! Get out of the vehicle! One at a time! Uno al momento! Turn around! Face away from me! Step back! Step back! Walk back! I need, mira para atrás! Mira para atrás! Sígueme! Manos afuera! Manos afuera! Manos afuera no! Moving on! Gente, se mueva! No se mueva!
2 illegal immigrants from Honduras were arrested. One said he had lived in Houston since 2012. Troopers said they were probably on the back road to pick up and smuggle some illegal immigrants. The driver was charged with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, but the local jail was full, so the charges were filed at large, and Border Patrol took the 2 men into custody.
There are hundreds and hundreds of miles of border right now as we speak that are completely unpatrolled because Border Patrol is overwhelmed processing these quote-unquote asylum seekers. For example, during the Haitian incident in Del Rio.
In September of 2021, more than 18,000 people, mostly Haitians, illegally crossed the U.S. border from Mexico and camped under the international bridge in Del Rio until Border Patrol could process them.
About 200 miles of border went unmanned, completely unmanned for several weeks, and there's no technology out there to record gotaways. So how would you ever guesstimate that?
Out here, if you see people walking through the brush, they're breaking the law 100%, guaranteed, because they're on your property without your permission.
I think my first year, I kept notes, and I think Border Patrol apprehended around 37 individuals in 2014 on our property.
I'm getting 200 people a night on average on my trail cameras for 2 years solid now. It started out, there's a few from the Congo, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, China, and then your typical Honduran, Guatemalan, El Salvadorian, a few Mexican. I kind of lose track of the other ones, but it's endless. A lot of them that are walking through are trying to get to San Antonio or Houston as a way to get somewhere further. I've talked to them wanting to go to New York, Chicago, Philadelphia. We have met a few that go to Denver and then Seattle. We're kind of getting numb to it all. We had 4 groups caught this morning. They're chasing another one right now with Border Patrol. We're 15 miles away from the border, and we're not the only property around here. Every neighbor all the way around is dealing with this, and their neighbors and their neighbors. So yeah, I don't know. Not sure what we're going to do. It's just, really, it's terrible because nobody's doing anything about it. And unless you live it, you can't understand it unless you're out here seeing it every day. It's seeing the impacts on the environment, seeing the impacts on the local ranchers. People can't run cattle because they're worried about their cattle dying from eating trash, or they're worried about their fences getting cut and cattle getting on the highway. Somebody hits one of those cows, and then your property's liable for the damages.
It's been patched a lot. Heavy trail walk.
My kids would ride around with me on the ranch during the day. In the last year, we recovered or found 21 dead bodies on the property. I don't want to have to explain to a 4-year-old why there's a dead person laying in the middle of nowhere on our property.
Band-aid on a bullet hole. That has nothing to do with replacing anything. If we were to replace everything, it's $800,000 plus.
In this immigration situations, I would say if we recover 25% of the cost, we consider ourselves lucky. At the last report I gave to the commissioners, we were $73,168 of unpaid bills, and this is all immigration issue. Now, if I have to call a helicopter in, I would say anywhere from $85,000 to $90,000. I'll give you an example. We had a situation with a snake bite. Those vials of what I'll use the term just antivenom, they're about yay big, and they run $1,500 a piece. We carried one in each truck. From the time we picked that person up to the time we flew them out, at the time they got to the hospital, the report I get from the air ambulance, a total of 19 vials were used on that one individual. We ate the bill as far as what we did. The air ambulance ate the bill because they're in the same situation we are. They don't have anybody to bill. We bill basically Homeland Security at the federal level, but it comes back not eligible. And
possible burglary, vandalism, to catching the trees. So as you can see, it never quits. It's never going to end until we can get somebody in office that cares. This is going to compile higher and higher every year.
Human smuggling arrests by Kinney County Sheriff's deputies have quadrupled over the last 3 years. These totals don't include the arrests made by Texas state troopers or Border Patrol agents in the county. Human smuggling is a felony and is punishable by up to 2 years in prison and a fine of $2,000 for each person being smuggled. These alleged smugglers are arriving for a court hearing.
My predecessor in this office had 5 to 6 cases a month for normal county crimes that are committed, to after Joe Biden was elected, we up to, I think our highest is 600 cases a month. And we only have about 3,000 people in the county, yet we've arrested 5,000 people under Operation Lone Star. That's more people that live in the county. When someone gets arrested, they're magistrated in Val Verde County at the magistration center over there. And then they're shipped to the jails that the governor set up, which I think they're capable of holding 6,000 people. At least 50% of them bond out on cash bonds. There's usually an ICE detainer on them before they bond out, which means the sheriff has no choice. He has to release them to ICE, who then does whatever they do. It's kind of a black hole. The problem is, they pay their cash bond to get released, and then usually they never show again. And so whether they're in Mexico or another country, I don't know, but they don't show up for court. And so most of the cases are resolved either by plea deals or a failure to appear in court. We've only had one jury trial so far, and the jury took 15 minutes, came back and gave him a full year in jail. I think they see the writing on the wall that you don't want to go to trial in Kinney County.
God bless Galveston County, Goliad County, and those that have sent resources down here to help us, that have backed us the whole, from day one.
Percocets and Valiums. The cartel sat back and they looked at the America's addiction to prescription drugs. is there's a lot of people in America who will never transition to illegal narcotics, i.e. meth, the heroin, or cocaine, but they'll take prescription drugs. If we can infiltrate the prescription drug market with fake pills and put fentanyl in them, we can force that transition from prescription drugs to fentanyl. And again, they were very successful in creating that new paradigm. A large majority of the overdose deaths we see now are people who thought they were taking an Oxycontin or a Vicodin, and it was a fentanyl pill with more than 2 milligrams of fentanyl, and it killed them within 30 seconds. So the cartels realized they were onto something. So then they started putting fentanyl into the cocaine supply. We're seeing it in the marijuana supply. They understand that fentanyl is so powerful and that the draw to the individual who is addicted will transition to fentanyl. In terms of addictive qualities, we're talking about potency, right? Fentanyl is 10 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. So as a drug trafficker, I want to sell a product that's going to bring my customers back as frequently as possible. And that means I'm going to sell them, or I want to sell them, the most potent substance I have. And right now the cartels have figured out that fentanyl right now is king of the game. The more fentanyl they can distribute, the more addiction they can attribute to that, and that means more profit for the cartels. Unfortunately, most people who die from an overdose-related fentanyl death are taking what they think is a Xanax, maybe the first time or the second time, and it's got that 2 milligrams of fentanyl in it, and they die, all right? You hear the stories all the times about parents going into their kid's room, kids slumped over in bed, they find what they think is an Adderall under the pillow, and it turns out to be a fentanyl pill with 2 milligrams of fentanyl. DEA has said now that 7 out of 10 pills have a lethal dose of fentanyl in it. And when you think about the millions of fentanyl pills which are distributed, right? 7 out of 10, that's a blue pill, red pill selection, right? You take that wrong pill for the first time, and your life is over. When I was growing up, kids smoked marijuana, they did some beer, you woke up the next day, you had a headache. Now, if you make that mistake, you can lose your life.
Did I hear you correctly that 7 out of 10 pills are lethal?
According to DA statistics, what they're seeing now is 7 out of 10 pills have at least 2 milligrams of fentanyl in it. And when you think about the cooks in Mexico who are
Joaquin Castro of Texas, quote, Governor Greg Abbott is using the Texas National Guard to obstruct and create chaos at the border. If Abbott is defying yesterday's Supreme Court ruling, the president needs to establish sole federal control of the Texas National Guard now. Likewise, you have Congressman Greg Casar, who's another Democrat from Texas, saying the following, quote, if Abbott is defying yesterday's Supreme Court ruling, Biden needs to establish sole federal control of the Texas National Guard. Now, just for your general reference, in case you're not aware, the governor of Texas, he is the legal commander-in-chief of the Texas National Guard, but only when that National Guard is not being mobilized by Title 10 of the U.S. Code. It's sort of a feature of our federalist system of government. It means that the governor is the commanding authority over the National Guard troops when they are within the state's borders, but only during the period of time when they're not being mobilized by the U.S. Department of Defense, meaning the U.S. Pentagon. And so, for instance, right now, at this very moment, as we're making this episode, while the Texas National Guard troops are on state active duty, they are operating under Title 32, which means that they fall under the command of the Texas governor, and they are paid by the state. But in theory, Joe Biden could federalize the National Guard, and in accordance with Title 10 of the U.S. Code, that would allow him, meaning Joe Biden, to in essence take control away from Greg Abbott and to take the direct command of the Texas National Guard. Now, at the moment, it's not clear whether that is something he would actually consider. I mean, after all, this is an election year, and seizing control of the Texas National Guard in order to force open the border, well, that probably will not play too well in the campaign trail. In fact, the only real statement that the White House has released on this particular issue, at least thus far, came from the White House spokeswoman who said this during an interview over on CNN. Quote, we want to make sure that we get something done at the border. That's why we have been having these conversations with Senate Republicans and Democrats for the past several weeks to come up with a bipartisan agreement to deal with the border. You know, that Governor Abbott is not interested in that, politicize an issue, and he's not helping communities. He actually isn't, and he's actually putting Border Patrol agents in harm's way by doing what he's doing. I'm not going to speak to any actions that the president might not take, but we have been very clear about that. Regardless, while on the one hand you have these Democrat lawmakers urging Joe Biden to federalize the Texas National Guard, on the other hand, you have the governors of half the states in the nation siding with Texas in this ongoing battle. That's because, just yesterday, the governors of 20
Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution says a state can't engage in war without the authority of Congress, unless it's being actually invaded or in imminent danger.
I think it's important to point out that James Madison, who drafted Article 1, used an example as discussing the invasion clause with smugglers in Virginia. The same situation we're having today on a much grander scale. So legally, it is an invasion.
Article 4, Section 7 of the Texas Constitution allows for the governor to use its militia to repel invasions.
There's two people in this entire situation that can solve this crisis. One is President Biden, and the other is Governor Abbott. I do not believe President Biden is going to solve this crisis. What you have to do is prevent them from coming in the first place.
There's just endless streams of people coming over. It's just constant. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what we're going to do. Something has to change.
It's going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. Because as long as they're allowing the people to come in and make some bogus claim to asylum, they're just going to keep coming.
What I fear is that people are going to stop relying on the government. They're like, you know what? The government's not going to help me. My family's in danger. I'm going to take matters in my own hands. I hate that county residents may have to do that to protect their families. It shouldn't be up to them to have to do that. The underlying purpose of any type of government, whether it's local, state, or federal, is to protect its citizens. And right now, both the state and federal government are failing to do that. And our one jurisdiction we have here, we're trying to do everything we can to do that.
I want you to think about your house, your own personal house. It could be an apartment, it could be anything else. Is it wrong to ask people to come to your front door of your home? Then why would it be wrong to ask people to come to the front door of our nation?